make choices. Kendall Kelly, Secretary to the Board.
Susie Thompson, Chief Financial Officer for the school district.
John Cheda, Manitou Springs Council. Jack Chairman on the school district board for 3 months.
Todd, City Council, Ward 3.
Gustav or Gus Moen, Board of Education Director.
Nancy Fortune, Mayor Pro Tem, Manitou Springs.
And I was going to mention that Manitou City Council is truly trying to be a service-oriented operation. If any of the school board people have concerns with the city, we would request that you give those concerns to Gary Smith. He will take care of them. And since he's not here, we can volunteer for, I think, anything we come up with. I'm sure Gary would be happy to serve. Okay. First, next item of business, discussion regarding joint response to the protest. Denise, I believe.
I think we can all read this. Elizabeth and Ron, our chief, it was an amazing event, and it really did bring us all together. It was a great way to bring Chief in for the first time. I think it was his first 2 weeks on, and to bring us together and working. And it was a partnership all the way through. It was, how do we ensure that we protect the students and the residents? And so it was just a huge collaborative effort. Cannot speak highly enough regarding the school and how they led through this, how Elizabeth and her group led through every little thing. And we were meeting together, talking about it. It was a joint effort, a joint plan all the way through. The chief did a phenomenal job with a whole plan in place. No matter what happened, we were ready and we were prepared. We brought the county on, the city of Colorado Springs on. It was a collaborative effort in all ways. So with that, I'll turn it over to Elizabeth.
Yeah, thank you, Denise. I think also thinking about being me in this role as a leader, probably one of the most significant events that I think a superintendent could sort of prepare for when we think about the group not showing up to there being a potential major problem there, but we were prepared for all of it. It's one of those moments too in time that you remember, our students will remember where they were, what they were part of. Even though it was really, the day was anticlimactic, which was exactly what we were hoping for, just the students and the power of leadership, and really thankful for our school leaders, how they led students, how they really thought about positivity and this culture of kindness. And I think it's a testament to true collaboration, open-mindedness, learning, making sure we have all the voices in the room to make sure that we're being thoughtful. And it really was a catalyst for a relationship between Denise and I, between the chief and between other agencies within the community and across the region. We had multiple school districts participate in terms of supporting around public information officers, Susie's leadership in that time frame. So thanks for just being encouraging for us. I think the community's receptivity to doing whatever we needed to do to make sure we kept students safe, both academically, emotionally, all of those aspects, because it really could have turned out a lot of different ways, and we think it was the best outcome possible.
And then Chief, if you want to say something. And I have to say, Roy did a phenomenal job that morning as the PIO. He was calm and really provided that information, every half an hour, and really kept a positive message the whole way through. So I do want to recognize Roy for that. And then Chief, do you want to say anything, or Roy?
I said enough. I won't say too much, but it was my first 2 weeks. You were brand new, and they really emphasized for me what the CIA has a theory they call liking, and it's how you build relationships. And it takes 3 things. It's time, duration, and intensity. We got all 3 of those in 2 weeks. So the benefit for me out of all this was to establish those relationships and build that bond with people that are going to work together for years to come. And we got that right off the bat. So I was very thankful for that. The cooperation was incredible, and tell you, I knew we were a success when about 3 days after the event, somebody, a supervisor from the Department of Justice, called me and said, "Hey, we were there. Good job." And didn't know they were there, but they were there to watch both sides. Did we treat the protesters well? Did we treat, the anti-protesters well? It was successful. So very happy.
Anyone else?
Any questions about it?
Questions or further comments?
I just wanted to say that one of the huge lessons out of it, as far as I'm concerned, is also to protect freedom of speech. And I think that everyone just did that really well. The lesson to our youth and our whole community was really special. So it was an amazing opportunity that we were able to make.
This is just a quick thing too. The Chamber of Commerce put up a little sign that on their board that said Manitou Springs supports every child every day. And I posted it on Facebook, and I think it was shared 1,500 times. So I think that really sort of resonated and was the response that I think folks outside the community saw. And it was just, I think, a nice way of thinking about things. So.
Other comments? Okay. Why don't we move on to the next agenda item, and that's the emergency plan collaboration and next steps update.
It's a perfect segue. Intentional planning in the agenda. So through this process, we took it as an opportunity to learn, and every experience is an opportunity to learn. And so as we were going through this process, making sure that we were building an incident command at the same time. And so we were running that scenario as if there was a major crisis, but at the end of the day, a snow delay can be a major event, depending on what the nature of elementary students and what, we just never know what's coming up. So we took it as an opportunity to learn and thrive in our leadership and preparedness, and also to work collaboratively with Chief around evacuation plans, all of those aspects. So it really did start that communication with us in terms of responsiveness in the event of a crisis. So where we are right now as a District 2, we know we had a significant retirement. Danny Geek had been in the role of security, buildings and grounds for several years. And so we knew that was going to be a tremendous hole to fill, someone to be buildings and grounds and security. That's significant. And so as we're finding the right person for the buildings and grounds position, really started thinking about how do we hire someone who can serve in the security role and has had previous background experience as in police and law enforcement. And that's when we desired to seek a consultant. And so we hired Jeannie Anderson. She's a resident of Manitou Springs. She is serving in a 10-hour-a-week role as a consultant. But I share that information with you because she's been a significant person already in just a short amount of time. Has worked with the police department, with fire department, is working closely with those leaders to make sure that we have the plans in place. Everyone has the keys that they need to have. One of the thoughts that she really came up with, and I think it was genius, is that we have cameras in our buildings and they're getting better each year. But one of the things that would happen is if there were a fire, if there were an incident, who would have access to those cameras? And it could be me, it could be other folks, but sometimes those are not our law enforcement. And so one of the ideas was to put an iPad. Actually, we brought in a MacBook here to the fire department. I think it's at the fire station. And so it can tap into our network. If there's an incident, then our fire and police can see where the incident is happening real time in the station there. I do not know of other partnerships and agencies in school in this collaboration that are so closely connected. There's also an iPad that can then be taken to a remote spot. No, that's what it is. It's a laptop that can go mobile. So I think it's nice that we are able to collaborate and think about those things. Also, just the plans for evacuation. So I share that to say I think that I know Westboro was a catalyst for these things to be in motion, but we're also thinking proactively in terms of just being ready for any event. Any questions about that?
Westboro was a great foundation, I think, for the partnerships to build our emergency response plan, any type of incident at the school system. And we've built on what they used to have and try to push that forward to improve it and make it better. And a big part of that is partnership with the fire department. Any kind of alarm up there, police and fire go. So no matter what's going on, both entities are there to take action if needed. Mark Gillis, our SRO, is the lead for the police department on the planning, and he's partnered with Randy and some other people from the fire department. And Janie, which is a great asset, she's a retired lieutenant from the Colorado Springs Police Department that had a lot of experience, I think, with SRO. So good team in place, we're building on it. The police department is partnered with Fountain PD to start doing some active shooter training. Fountain, being right there at Fort Carson, has a lot of connections, and they've got us set up with the Mount site on Fort Carson, which is a school, among other buildings, where police officers can go and use simunitions, which are dummy rounds, but they actually shoot like paintballs, and train, real world type training, good training, for entry of buildings where you're going against an active shooter in a school environment. Real good for our guys to have some education. That's where we're going. I think it won't be long before we've got a good thick plan in place and we can start practicing.
This is our tribal talking stick. All right, so the next item is F2.5, and that says let people get up and get seconds if they'd like to do that. And then we're going to follow that with Partners for Healthy Choices. So if there's anybody wants seconds, please. It's a good opportunity. Yeah, there's a lot.
Whoa. Those ice cubes. I think those ice cubes.
All right. It started then. We have Partners for Healthy Choices.
Good evening. I'm Jane Squires again, just to remind you, Assistant Director for Partners for Healthy Choices. The first thing I want to say is I'm so excited to be here because I brag about this happening a lot. When I'm at wellness coordinator meetings for the state, and they are in awe. And they're jealous. They're like, how did that happen? So it's really exciting that I'm here tonight and I get to actually present. So Denise called us, and we have received the last 2 years city allocation that was tied to marijuana education, all things, to prevent that. So I tried to think really intentionally about how can I present this when our health curriculums are, already in place, doing what they're supposed to, but we use that money for a lot of different things. So I thought I'm just gonna give you a little bit of education. All right, so first of all, I thought I'd bring up, this is actually our structure, Partners for Healthy Choices. So the green at the top is the community of Manitou. Partners for Healthy Choices is kind of right in the middle. And we work really closely with Connect 14. We have the Partners for Healthy Choices Coalition that's over on the right. And then myself, which I talk to all 4 of those people quite a bit, superintendent, chief financial officer. We have a student liaison. More importantly, what I want you to look at is towards the bottom of the chart. I feel like I'm in the way. Those are our building wellness teams. And it's really going to be important when I start the money part of this as to why they're so important. We have 2 co-leaders in every building, and some of the teams are represented by 4 or 5 different people. Sometimes administration is there, but there's a lot of talking back and forth. And so some of the programs that I go through here in a little bit are really done on that building level. They know what their building needs, they know what their student needs, and so that's where those deliverables happen. Of course, there are some things that come from the district, like my office, and we know we branch out there, but those 4 teams are really the bulk of what goes on. All right, so teaching. The intentionality is we know that students in their lives face risk factors. So I want to give the definition that exposure to factors that are typically associated with increased likelihood of substance use, misuse, or abuse. So that could be maybe low school commitment. Maybe doesn't get them there regularly. All right, poor social skills. What we do to help that is we take a look at protective factors, and those are exposure to factors that are typically associated with decreased likelihood of substance use, misuse, or abuse. So good school engagement, coping skills, maybe after school programs, and those are some of those programs I'll go through later. The very bottom, the risk and protective factors framework is based on a really simple premise. To prevent a problem, first, you have to identify it. You have to reduce that factor, and that increase the risk that problems will develop. And simultaneously, you have to identify and increase the protective factors that buffer those individuals from the risk factors. So as a school district, using city allocation, that's really what we try to focus on. Okay, I thought about giving you a quiz tonight, like I really wanted to. That was a teacher in me, and I thought I'm going to give them that Maslow's hierarchy of needs and not put anything on it, and they had to plug in where was what. And I thought, oh well, I better not. I was told I only have 5 minutes, but now I found out I had 10, so now I wish I would have done it. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that's really a basis of PHC, what we're all about. A person's basic needs must be met before self-actualization can be achieved. So we start at the very bottom with physiological, eating, sleeping as much as we can try to take care of that. Then safety and promotion at school. We want them to feel safe. Belongingness and love, definitely. When I go into my school buildings, I am so excited about how much those kids want to be there. If they could, they'd be there over the weekend. Most of them, I'm not sure high school would, but some of them probably. and then esteem, and then the self-actualization. While I was trying to look for the pyramid, I found the Maslow's hierarchy of school needs. And I thought, that's cool, I'll stick that in there. So physiologically, basic needs are not met, and it kind of goes up. I know you guys have a handout, I hope. But also, so I'm not gonna go through all of it just for time's sake, but I kind of wanted you to know, where's our intentionality? When we decide to do programs, what are we thinking about? All right, what are we looking at? What do our kids need? And so this, I think, is a basic. All right, I'm hoping you have risk factors. If not, I brought some extras. So one of the things I talked about earlier were the risk factors and the protective factors. So I broke these in, it's 2 pages long, but I kind of condensed early childhood, that would be elementary, and there are some risk factors: poor academic performance, lack of control or mastery experiences, and then what are some protective factors? So support for early learning, access to supplemental service, such as feeding, screening, vision, hearing. Kids, we have to make sure kids know that they can see in order to do schoolwork. So it's some of that basic stuff. Then just branch over to middle childhood, risk factors that you kind of see there. Some of the early childhood can kind of leak into that a little bit, but you find some different risks in the middle school age group. And then the protective factors. So presence of mentors and support for developmental skills, positive norms. Schools are always working on teaching those. Clear expectations for behavior. You know, if you talk to most students, they want those expectations. They want to know what's expected of them. Physical and psychological safety is really a huge one. The very last one is through adolescence, and then again, it definitely adds other risks. The older they get, kind of the more things that come into play. So maybe bullying, peer rejection, some of those listed there, poor academic achievement. Oftentimes, if they start in the elementary school, that kind of follows them. Maybe a traumatic event. We're a town close to deployment. Maybe it could be a parent getting deployed, all right? Or they haven't been home for 3 years. So our intentionality really is looking at those things and what can we do to help that. Protective factors below, healthy peer groups, school engagement is huge, effective classroom management, you know, expecting high academic standards. All right, money part. So, what I thought I'd do then, what would be good was protective factors are listed on the left. Program activities are in the middle. And then what the cost is. This is for 2018, 2019. So what we do is we look at those protective factors and we try to match up programs or activities that are going to benefit that, all right, that are going to be a positive influence. So I'll go through them real quick. So positive partnering between school and family. Last year, I think some of you are there, we did a Healing Our Youth event. We had 106 people show up. It was tagged with a resource fair. Was a great deal. We got some good feedback. We do Love and Logic series for parents in the elementary schools, and Parent Connection, which, if you're interested, February 19th is another Parent Connection, and it's over resiliency. So we are starting to put in our Connect 14 some parent instruction also, besides just, you know, they can do art and African drumming and things like that. We've started to add some parent tools. You know, what do you need to help your student, your kid grow up and be self-actualization? Then the next line is opportunities for engagement within schooling. community, and they really focus on 2 or more of the following really help be protective factors. So some of those that we've spent money on, a little bit of Connect 14, not much, but there were some things there, basically snacks for kids. They've been to school all day, they ate at 10:30. When they go to Connect 14, they're hungry. Partners for Healthy Choices Coalition, that's the first Wednesday of every month. We have done, last year it was really awesome. We did some great collaboration with community members with our Healthy Kids Colorado survey. So basically, they came, we worked on it, what do you see as a need, and we worked on some plans for that, which we just applied for another grant through what we came up with there. The musical opportunity, Emma Crawford production, that was huge engagement for our kids, the time they spent on it, being with our music teachers, then the actual performance was awesome, just for them to be able to go through that and maybe think, where can I take this? Can I take this further in life? What can it offer for me in the future? Then the very last, support for early learning. I won't go through all of them. Positive norms, physical and psychological safety, healthy peer group. We have a second step curriculum that is with our 4th and 5th grade class. We're actually looking to try to increase that into the middle school next year. We're working on some funding with that right now. Our restorative practice, mindfulness. We have a Girls on the Run in the elementary school. That's all linked up to mentors. Connect 14 again. And the cost is on the right. I really haven't been saying that, but I figure you guys can see that. And this is the last slide for budgeting. Protective factors. This was that one I talked about, the access to supplemental services, feeding, screenings, mental health needs, the programs and activities, youth mental health first aid. Our teachers go through that training. Mental health is a huge thing right now with school kids and other kids, and we want our teachers to be trained on how can you recognize something's going on. That also mental health, and I think I forgot to talk about it in the 3rd slide. Mental health and substance abuse kind of go hand in hand. So we'll find out that students that have mental health issues, I don't know if you've heard of self-medicate, but sometimes in order to get away from that or not be worried about it, they'll go into alcohol or drug use and self-medication. So our teachers are, I know we were almost 93% trained, but I think in the last couple of years we probably need to do some refreshers. ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experience, that's a teacher training also, and then all our health screenings are involved in that cost. The very last one was that important piece that I showed you on one of those second slides, and these are our building wellness teams. And so to the right of that, UPass Elementary, we fund those schools. We give them a part of that city allocation. It's usually $12 per student. So sometime in September, we're figuring out what their enrollment is. And we award that to those co-leaders and those building teams. And they work on SHIPS. And SHIPS is school health improvement plans. And it's actually run with the state, with CDE. And that's, if you remember 3 years ago, we won that big award. That was due to the SHIPS that our teams wrote and the state recognizing, you know, what an awesome job we've done with our wellness. So basically, for me, it's all about wellness. How can we help kids feel safe, secure, at the same time thinking about being successful in life and offering all of those opportunities? Questions? Yes.
Thanks. Looks like you've got a lot of really outstanding programs and action-oriented stuff. And I was wondering what evaluation, do you have baseline data, do you have specific outcomes defined? And have you been able to evaluate any of that sort of stuff to see the overall impact of the program?
So one thing we don't have tonight, we do Healthy Kids Colorado survey every 2 years, and we did it this fall. So it is not it is not back to us yet, so we're waiting on it. So that's one thing we look at. Most of all those programs listed have their own evaluation. So second step, those teachers, it's a counselor at the elementary school, they do a pre-survey and a post-survey to see where that's at. So we do use a lot of data at school, and we always are looking to, is this working? If not, let's look at something different.
And I'll just add, writing that OBH grant, Office of Behavioral Health, that's a $175,000 grant that we just submitted between, Joey Levy did a significant contribution, and of course Jane. But in there, we did look at data, and we are below the state. So the work that we're doing is significant in the community. So you're seeing other districts rising at a higher rate, and so this work is making an impact. We do still see increases in marijuana use, but not at the rate of other districts and other places across the state. So I think that's really significant to think about all of these protective factors. Upstream prevention, it makes a difference. And if we did nothing, we would not be having the same results. And I think this is a 10-year history of Partners for Healthy Choices. Really significant work that Lori Wood started years ago, and really to honor that contribution, her vision, and in collaboration with lots of you here. But I 100% believe that if that work hadn't started years ago, the community would not be seeing these successes. And we're working with a student right now who is really trying to not use marijuana, and we are looking at every single opportunity. It's consistent, it's available, it's we're asking what opportunities, and I'm even thinking about who can this student partner with in our community to say we can't stop, we cannot stop, and each time we think about these things, that there are other ways that we can maybe reach a child. And so I just think it's really important to honor the work that's been going on for years, because what's happening in Manitou is not happening in most places, and we just can't lose that focus. And I just want to thank all of the folks. Natalie's been a significant member of the coalition, and the partners, the community partners. So, and thanks, Jane, for your leadership too.
Thank you. I'm so gratified. It's just awesome that when I go to meetings and I talk about what they do, people really do look to us as leaders. Like, how can they be more like us? So it's really exciting, and I know you guys have heard it takes a village to raise a child, and it really does. And the allocation we get, we are very thoughtful and intentional about what we spend it on. So thank you very much.
I want to add one other thing, then I'll hand it to Tina. Jane updated us today, we have 70 students who are considered homeless. That's 5% of our student population. And we're really thinking about upstream prevention for supporting families who don't have those fundamental needs met on a daily basis. And I think that the work around the community approach to supporting families is so important, and we will never turn our back on kids who are homeless. I can't say that's always the case for some school districts, and so kudos for being the school district for many years who has really thought about intentionally supporting families who need us.
I think the other thing I might add, the programs that I put up here, that in no way probably gets to everything that we do. One thing I might kind of rev up a little bit is that last spring I applied for a pilot program for teen mental health first aid. It was my idea that sometimes adults are the last ones to hear that a teen is struggling with mental health, but who hears? Their peers, their friends. And what do they do about it? Because a lot of it is, don't tell anybody, please. And so they feel like that. They have to keep that confidentiality. So we ended up, Teen Mental Health First Aid started in Australia 3 years ago. And I know everybody's been bugging the National Council to bring it, and they finally did this year. And they did 70 pilot schools throughout the nation. There are 2 in Colorado, and we are one of them. And so we, 4 of us went for training, and we have 1 more week in classes. And I had a student come up to me, I might start bawling. I had a student come up to me after class, Ben Gillum and I were walking down the hall, and we just got done and he had left to go to the restroom and he said, I just want to tell you two that this is the most fantastic thing that has happened. He goes, I don't know if you've gotten told that by very many students, but there's a lot of talk within the students about how great this is, and thank you so much. So I think it really hit my heart about we are doing the right thing. The students notice that. So, and basically that program is if they find out somebody's in a mental health crisis, it's okay to get an adult, a trusted adult, to move them forwards, and it's a really good program, so we're excited to be a part of it.
I was just going to circle back to Nancy's. We have some qualitative data, but some quantitative data. Since this is one of our end statements, and during the monitoring report meetings, you'll be presenting a plethora of data and evidence to us that we can either invite city council members to attend to see that particular presentation on that end statement, or supply them with that evidence so that they have that data. Because I think it's an excellent question that what are the outcomes in numbers? Although numbers are not everything, we want the qualitative and the quantitative.
Thank you. Before we move on to the next item, I just want to recognize, for the record, Councilwoman Wolf joined us at 5:25 and Councilwoman Wolbrook at 5:28. It reminds me what it's like to have a 9-to-5 job. So, next item, top 3 to 5 priorities for City Council and Board of Education, future issues we could work together to address. Tina, why don't you start off?
I think when we're talking about priorities, I was actually thinking that perhaps, Elizabeth, you wanted to talk about the strategic plan a little bit. I can tell you a lot of what we talk about is exactly on the foothills of James' presentation about mental health, safety and security, both emotional and physical of our students, as well as the instructional capacity. But much like you all, I know in our meeting with Denise, she exemplified the idea that we will think about some funding mechanisms and how do we change those both at the local and the state level.
So about a month ago, we had a retreat with myself and the Board of Education and really spoke to what is Jim Collins talks about going from good to great, and what is the flywheel. And that flywheel, as you know, once it starts going, it just moves so smoothly that there's really no effort. Really thinking about in this transition for me, and y'all have been in the community for a long time, what is the flywheel part of Manitou, and really thinking about us being a small mountain town school district with big hopes and dreams for students, families, and the community. When we think about that smallness, it's really unique. It makes us not Colorado Springs, and at the same point, we get opportunities that from a larger city. But really never losing sight of the fact that, for example, at the Manny Awards, 3 of the finalists attended Manitou Springs Elementary School, 1 attended UPass Elementary School. So that pre-K to 12 articulation, and then kids coming back. But when we really ground those in relationships, deep learning opportunity, then we continue to have that small focus, small and intentional focus on kids and the community. With that, some of our major improvement strategies really focusing on professional learning, and those being grounded in relationships, and thinking about relationships that are connected to restorative practices, social emotional learning, ethics, the ethics of education, really listening to, what is our responsibility as a professional. The second also being around professional learning that reflects high quality instructional practices around literacy, differentiation, and experiential and interdisciplinary learning. We're thinking about our community really dedicated to the arts, and Joey's going to be working closely with principals around continued art integration in the classroom, outside of the classroom. But also all modalities of the arts are just as important to the other. And then experiential, when you think about the opportunities, for example, the 6th grade Mountain Academy is expanding to 48 students. Right now it's 20-ish kiddos. And there's been a waiting list. There's 17 students on a waiting list for experiential learning at the Mountain Academy. And I also was just speaking with Barack around his program at the middle school, thinking about, it's supporting about 16 students right now, but we would love to expand that to where more kids are impacted by what is happening at the Flying Pig Farm and those community partnerships that are right in our backyard that make us a small town, which we're so fortunate to be a part of. By the way, I do have a home here now, so I'm almost a resident. But also, really, the next part of that is looking at meeting each child's needs, and through that, progress monitoring. And I do think this connects to Partners for Healthy Choices, because when we know something and significant ways to support children and families, we will see the biggest impact on their life and their family's life in a positive way, which ultimately supports the city. Also, just in terms of teaching and learning vertical alignment, we're really thinking about that. If we can leave the things that don't need to be left to chance, we can control for those things. For example, language, shared language, teachers still having autonomy to teach in a creative and inventive way, but we want to support students and families so that they're kind of leave some of the guesswork out of this work. Also, high quality feedback and coaching, really investing in the cycle of feedback and coaching. It matters. It matters for us professionally at all of our levels. I believe we grow when we get feedback that helps us. I see feedback all the time. And then the last major improvement strategy, really provide families and community partners with opportunities to engage, collaborate, and learn. And that is a part of it, is that we're a learning organization and that we want to model that all the time. So we love this partnership with the city. I'm really thankful for it. And as we're thinking about these are my draft drawings, and you can kind of see how my brain works. Each community meeting, I add to these questions, and it'll eventually be rolled out in a nice way. But one of the last conversations we had with parents, we said, our strategic outcome, really when we get to the top of this, what are we thinking about? All means all. All does not mean 95%, it means all. And one of the parents said, if we say all students will graduate on time with college and career ready, we said, what does ready mean? And that's a really powerful concept, and we started unpacking that and thinking about they're ready to pursue their dreams. And I think that is what goes back to that flywheel concept, and we say we're a small mountain town school district with big dreams and hope for students, staff, and the community. And these are some of our plans. In that is some capital improvement. We're having those conversations, but really also a strong relationship with the Board of Education. We have a super strong board who are motivated, and I think we're all focused on the right things. Anything else, Tina?
Oh, there's still tons, but those are the priorities. Always more.
Okay. Well, I guess then on the city side, I could start off. There are tons of things that we need to address too. I think just to be brief, probably three of our top issues are capital improvements in the infrastructure in the community. The second issue would be traffic, parking, and congestion, which are all kind of interrelated. And the third thing I would pick would be our financial picture and continue to work on the budget. And all three of those issues are complex, they're expensive, and they have long-term implications. So we have some fairly thorny problems there. And I would open up to any other city council people who would like to add to that list. I guess we're agreed that there's enough work right there to focus on. Okay. Okay, moving right along, community mental health wellness discussion.
Hello. Do you have my Elizabeth, talk to me about that student you mentioned.
Yes.
My thoughts.
Oh, good. Great.
Thank you. I don't know if I ever warmed up yet, so I might move around. A lot of this is going to kind of mirror a lot of what Jane's doing and what this meeting has been discussing already. So I stood there watching my wife's health decline right in front of me, and I didn't know what was happening, and neither did she. I things were seizing her inside, causing her inability to walk and to move. She's a teacher at the high school. She would tough it out for a week, would be bedridden for 2 days, and would amp up to tough it out for another week while we tried to figure out what was grabbing a hold of her inside. And it was evil. You could feel it. It was awful. And we didn't know what it was. The doctors didn't know what it was. The only doctors we could find and access were online, because I couldn't get her up and out of the house. So no one had any answers, and I had to find some. So I went marching out into the world and was asking anyone I could find who might know something. Someone indicated, in fact, back into Jane's presentation, she mentioned ACEs. That stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And there was a study done in 1995. That study was done by the CDC and sponsored by Kaiser. And what they found was they've identified some adverse childhood experiences, and they determined a mapping from individuals who experienced these experiences. And there's a direct correlation to that individual experiencing these traumas and how they carry them in their body and how it affects their nervous system, their brain, and their functionality. And so I got some new information, so I dove in and I learned some more. And every step along the way, I'd meet new people, and I would learn from them. And I would glom onto them, and I would tell them, I'm not going away. So understand, you're part of my network, and we're going to continue this work together. I met a couple who have been studying and training on this information for decades. Doctors Barry and Janae Weinhold in Colorado Springs. And so I started working with them and going to training and learning about what this developmental trauma disorder is. And during this process, guess what I discovered? I discovered my own traumas that I've been dealing with my entire life. So that was a bonus. We had just come out of a training, a pretty intense 3-day training with the Weinholds on becoming trauma-informed care practitioners so that we can spread this word and we can train on this topic to help others. Keep in mind, we're both functioning adults. We might have been aware of what we were carrying. We didn't understand the capacity. We didn't understand how much it was impacting us. We had just come out of that training, and I had been going to school board meetings. What did I find? But there was a school board meeting in August, and it was a joint meeting like we're having now. And on that agenda was a partnership between the city council, the city, and the district, the school district, on mental health. And so I was quite excited, having just come out of my training, and I was there attending the meeting. And Mr. Steve Weimer had cited a few statistics on mental health, and we had some discussion on this partnership. But what I learned is that in the 3 years that we've been having this discussion, we hadn't quite formulated that bridge. We haven't created that partnership that I was seeing on the agenda. At first I was sad, but immediately I was excited because I knew that we had an opportunity here. It was on the table already. So I'm sitting in my seat, a bit antsy, raising my hand, saying, I know how to do it. I know how to do it. I know what this stuff is because I've lived it. When I learn this stuff, I know what it feels like. And so does my wife. So we tend to embody what we learn, and we're very passionate about this topic and about this help and therapy. I'm even in the school paper there, or not the school paper, but community member. That's me, Gustav Moen, and he jumped up and said, let me at it. Now, I don't have all the answers, but one thing that I can tell you is, coming out of that training, I met a whole team from San Antonio. And this team from San Antonio had been working towards creating an entire trauma-informed community. They're almost 2 years into it now, so they're a little ahead of us, but we're working together and collaborating. They've identified 13 factions in their community of San Antonio and have assigned champions in each of those to collaborate, to work towards creating this trauma-informed community, which we'll get to. So, this could be traumatic in and of itself. Enter. No. Oh, we're just a scroll. Hey, thanks. That helps. So what is trauma? Specifically, it's an event that overwhelms the nervous system, altering the way we process and recall memories. What is interesting is you can carry trauma inside you that you've lived with and dealt with that you're not even aware of. It can be impacting you daily like it was myself. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, who is a leader in this field, states trauma is not the story of something that happened back then. It's the current imprint of that pain, horror, and fear living inside of people. I like that definition. There's another one on the screen as well. When most of us think of trauma, we think of, I'm Norse, so I like the Norse Vikings, and I have a lot of Norse Viking paraphernalia on my walls. So when I think of trauma, I think of what would make me run into Jack's office and the ER, and that's traditionally something like maybe a sword through the abdomen, a war hammer to the head. We think of that as trauma. I didn't think of these things as trauma, things like neglect, things like abuse, in that we get tough and we get through them. But did we regulate it? Did we integrate our body's response to that trauma? And that's what's critical, and that's what I hadn't done. And that's what my wife hadn't done, and that's what probably so many of you in here haven't done. Because honestly, most of us are impacted in one way or another. There are many types of trauma beyond those, and we discussed some of them here, and like everyone else, I did give you reading to do later. You're not even able to see these types of things. But to hit these two types of trauma, emotional, for me, I was stuck in that fight, flight response. Fight, flight, freeze, and now fawn. These are our options as a human being when we are dealt with a trauma. We've all probably been there. You kind of lose a bit of consciousness, everything zeroes in. You could probably whack us in the head and we wouldn't feel it. We have heightened cortisol and adrenaline in our bodies, and it's poisoning us. And I was walking around every day for 47 years in this capacity. I was looking for injustices to insert myself into so that I could do something. It was killing me. I was an addict. I was an alcoholic in middle school, also smoked cigarettes. Actually, before. Back then it was K through 6. Before I hit middle school, I was actively drinking alcohol and smoking cigarettes. When you're in that state, there's no safety. Physically, not only those addictions, immune systems, they don't tend to work. I remember telling somebody in middle school or grade school that I missed 23 days that year, and they were like aghast. Wow, what happened? And I thought that was normal. I was shocked that they were shocked. But those are the types of things that happen, and this is what's happening to a lot of the kids in our schools that we need to be aware of, and in our town. Mm-hmm.
We have several topics we need to address.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So with that in mind, these are the things that we do need to pay attention to. The impacts of trauma lead to the school shooters. They lead to the homeless. They lead to those abusing others. And those are the things that we want to address together. So the goal of trauma-informed care is to facilitate practical change through informed policies, practices, organizational structures, and support to address the short-term and long-term impacts of trauma. SAMHSA identifies 3 R's as realize the widespread impact, recognize the signs, and respond by integrating knowledge about trauma into policies, procedures, and practices, which all of us here have the capability to do. And 4th, to resist the re-traumatization. What a trauma-informed community is a community operating under policies, procedures, practices, and structures that are knowledgeable in the impact of trauma on the individual and how the effects of these traumas impact larger society through dysregulated behaviors. I'll let you read the rest. However, what we're looking for is a collaboration. It's a consortium between stakeholders, including city administration, fire, police, first responders, the school district, the board, businesses and organizations, healthcare and community members, all being trained in understanding what we're dealing with and how to heal. So what I propose is a roadmap to healing. Creating that consortium with champions in each area. We're looking at ongoing relevant training for staff and community, review and revise existing policies, practices, and procedures for trauma-informed care and trauma responsiveness. Obviously, funding is always of concern, and to survey stakeholders for their unique needs. And then we repeat, to build that community that is safe, trustworthy, empowering, collaborative, supportive, and inclusive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay. We have two additional pieces of, 2 items remaining in the meeting tonight. I would remind the audience that City Council does have a work session at 6:30, so we kind of need to move along there. 6:30, so we have about 20 minutes. Next item is F7, coming together activity.
I think I'm leading the coming together activity, which for me is odd because I think we would have done that at the beginning, but we're doing that at the end. So in the world I live in, which is K-12, actually pre-K-12, public education on a daily basis, and then I come to the board meetings for more because I can't get enough public education. We're going to do an activity right now, and I know that bums some of you out, but you're going to understand when we do the processing after the activity while we're doing it, because who was it? Natalie was like, Tina, what are you doing? And I also did it with this. I'm the UPass BOCES board president as well, and even one of the UPass BOCES member before the meeting, and they knew I was doing this kind of activity. Was like, what are you going to make us do? And I'm like, you know, I taught middle school and high school for years, and adults are actually worse, right? So, and I used to be one of those adults when I was younger, but you'll see, and it will actually kind of relate to some of our topics this evening. So you're gonna, because I am a directive human being, you are gonna follow my directions. I facilitate large crowds when I do professional development for District 49, and I do a little side gig. So I'm gonna stand. Audience members, you wanna participate? Get a little hyped, it's gonna be fun, you're gonna love it. You ready? The answer is, you want to participate? Yes, thank you. Woo! Okay, so what we're going to do is this side and this side. I want you by that first pole over there. That side and that side, I want you the 3rd pole down. Audience members, there's only a few of you. I'm not going to make you number off 1 through 2. I think you can evenly distribute yourselves among these 2 groups. Thank you so much for playing along. Aren't you glad you came this evening? so you know, I took 16 personalities again, test Myers-Briggs for the millionth time, and yes, I am a commander personality. Okay, so you guys, you're gonna finish the statement. My favorite thing to do in Manitou when I'm not working is, everybody repeat it with me. My favorite thing to do in Manitou when I'm not working is, get ready? I know, that's the hard part. Okay, gather up. Did you guys prepare yourselves? Okay, much now. Okay, so what you guys are going to do is, stay put, people. To be the best board member I can be, I think I'm going to need to, and you're going to finish that sentence. Stay with me. To be the best board member, community member I can be, I think I'm going to need to. Hold it there. It's going to be the toughest part of your evening. Okay, you guys got it? Okay. Do you guys have it? You got it?
Individually or as a
Individually. Okay, ready? All of you are going to eyeball one of them like it's a middle school dance. And you're going to go find them, and you're going to start the conversation with your sentence, and then you're going to answer with your sentence. Go ahead. Oh, good, because for me, this is just the fun. The fact that all right, as your conversation winds down, I will know you're ready to continue when you mosey back to your seat, and I want to see mosey.
Yeah, we're not just sitting down.
Thank you.
And we're moseying, and we're moseying, and we're moseying. Okay, I'm going to ask for a couple quick share outs because we're going to process because it wasn't just the activity. But I was going to say, the first group just needed to share their sentence. You just needed over there to share your sentence. Yet, it seemed to me observationally, you kept talking to each other. So, I'm just going to make a point after we talk to a few participants, and again, thank you so much. You didn't anticipate this when you attended this evening, that I would be here making you do this. How did it feel to get up, move, and go talk to someone that you had not met before?
Well, the person I talked to, I had been.
Okay, well then scratch that and the rest of it.
It felt good to be a part of the community. I know most of these people, they all know me, so I know. Hi, I'm Mike. Tina, good to meet you. I believe my question was, how could I, as a community member, make this a better place? And I don't know if any of you know, but I'm taking back the comic book store. So I figured as a comic book store, I could work more with the schools for reading programs and after school programs. So that was my.
Excellent. It felt good.
It did feel good.
All right, anybody else can just kind of debrief that process with me? Someone else? Mr. Straight Face in uniform. we don't need to turn that
Feelings. I hide them behind this Kevlar vest. So my question was, in order to be a better citizen or board member, my answer was build relationships. So the gentleman that I met, his question was, what does he like to do in Manitou when he's off work? And his response to that was, cook dinner for friends. Those two ideas go hand in hand. When you're eating dinner together, what do? You talk, you build relationships, you meet people. And so, good to meet you, sir. He's making dinner for me sometime.
How did it feel?
Good. That's why I'm here. I get to know people and build relationships, and I think that is the key to success in Manitou. And I think this is very demonstrative of what that is, this meeting here.
How much different is that than if we would have just sat and gone around in a circle and answered those questions individually? Would that have felt the same as what we did? Were some of you uncomfortable when I asked you to get up, go to the corners, and to do that? Were some of you like, this lady, leave us be? We're tired. We didn't come here for this. Yes, absolutely you did. But after you did it, did you feel 100% better? And were you engaged, and did you feel good about it? I sure did. I sure did, seeing all of you engaging in something that you were comfortable and being courageous and making a connection.
Just to give you an idea how dynamic Tina is, we look at the agenda here, and she says, "What's this coming together activity all about?" And I said, "Oh, the school district's putting that on." And she said, "Oh, okay, so that's perfect. There's a lot of spontaneity."
That's a couple of educators on
Right, okay, so I learned something from that. So whether it's wherever in a pinch, we'll just grab Tina. So I think this has been a nice meeting. It's great to see the school board people here. I think we have a lot in common. We're deeply interested in the community. We understand how important volunteerism is in our community. I think we all want to set a good example for the community. So thank you for your service, and please pass those things on to the staff of the school and to the volunteers that you work with. That's important. We want to be a strong, good, healthy community and keep that inspired and active.
More food, always important. No, again, just thank you. This is Manitou, and the more we are interacting together, the more we come together, these kind of things, we just share ideas, and those ideas just blossom into something amazing for all of us.
Thank you very much. There'll be no further business. Yeah, but there is more food, so we're going to adjourn and have more food. Oh, and
Nice job, Jacob.